And we are live. Welcome to the Political Orphans. My name is Nico and I am your in-house conservative. To my left, Rob Ambrose, our token liberal. Our goal is simple. We want to show you that it's possible for a lefty and a righty to not only get along, but to be able to have a civil conversation when we disagree. Because never forget, common sense has no political affiliations. Happy Canada Day.
Yeah, happy Canada Day, brother, and also to the audience out there, whoever's on this early. Hopefully, you guys are having a good one, and that's kind of the theme of the show today. Obviously, we could have. There's obviously some news going on, and we'll kind of discuss that. But I think we kind of wanted to do a Canada Day themed episode where we just kind of talk about, it seems like this day and age, it's what it means, what Canada Day means, and I guess what it even means to be Canadian is it's not quite as clear as maybe it felt when we were growing up. People like you and me.
Yeah, that's this morning I woke up with a man, that was gonna sound gay, but I woke up with a heavy heart because I'm always up before my wife, and in the morning she comes say hi, and she's just like a balloon right now. The stomach is just, and it makes me realize that my son will not get to grow up in the same Canada I grew up in. And
that was a nice save there. You started with, I woke up with a heavy heart, and then went into your wife's giant belly. I'm like, brother, you got to close this loop real fast in case your wife's watching.
I say a lot of dumb.
Yeah, it's got to be coming through the wall here in a second.
Oh no, man!
But
I'm worse.
You've recovered nicely.
I'm worse, brother. When most people exaggerate their content like there's somebody different on camera, I'm worse in real life. I'm a lot worse at that. Oh, bro, way more in real life than I am.
Down.
I have to tone it down, or else I would not be able to be allowed on social media at all. So I always have to tone it down. But yeah, man, the Canada Day makes me realize that I don't know, man. I don't feel like it's worth celebrating. And it seems like it's not only me, right? You look around, like Brampton can't have, the Toronto area can't have real celebration. Montreal canceled it again, yet all the naked dudes are still being sponsored by cities to go walk around in front of children. And it really makes me realize that we're not really, it's not Canada anymore. At least it's not the Canada I want. It's not the Canada that I grew up in. And you know what pisses me off the most about all of this? I don't know that pissing off is the best term, but what bothers me the most about all of this is that I'm not sure what we can do to make it better. That's probably the portion that bothers me the most is, it's one thing. I don't know who said this, but there's three types of people. There's people that talk about culture as in what's going on around them. Mm-hmm. There's people that talks about problems, and then there's people that find solutions. So obviously I'm paraphrasing, but those are the three types of people that you're gonna find. And I don't like to be either the first or the second. I want to be the third that finds solutions. I don't know what the solution is outside of building real conservative people that will, and I'm not talking party here, I'm just talking about people that are in their 40s and above that remembers a Canada that was culturally something. Because, man, you know what? I'll ask you the question. What does it mean to be Canadian?
Well, I mean, that's the question of the day, literally. I think, to your question about like solutions, I mean, to me, I don't, we find a lot of common ground on the show. There's things we disagree on. I think, I don't see it as, to me, it just seems like bad governance, and all we need to do is get good leadership in there. Right. I don't think the history is full of I don't think there's ever a point where it's too far and we can't come back. it's just a matter of you got to actually turn around and start walking the other way before you can ever get back. And that's sort of, I guess, what we're trying to do here now is to, at least start that journey. At the end of the day, like I don't think there's ever a time that you've gone too far. Like, even if you look at historically, imagine Germany in 1942, what that would have looked like if, say, you're a Jewish person. You probably would have thought, okay, we've gone too far. There's no come back from this. And then obviously Germany today has its own problems, but they have come back from that. I think everything's a pendulum. Everything swings. So I think, yes, on Canada Day, I think it's worthy to reflect and see where we've gone wrong, what we can fix. But I think, I think the solution is to essentially, I'm going to oversimplify it here because we only have a 2-hour show, but get better leaders, right? Get people who are able to recognize the problems that we're facing and deal with them. Right now, we don't have that. We have the people in power who have created many of the problems. So, to the question of how to fix it, I think it can be fixed with better governance, better leadership, but we got to get that in place first before we can even hope to make any positive change.
I think you're too far down the road, because as much as I agree with you, that's the problem. Who the fuck is good governance right now? Where do you see good leaders? I don't even care that you're on the left, on the right. No, but what you're talking about is very naive to say what you're saying, because I agree. I don't think anybody will disagree with you that we have a governance problem. I think that anybody that sees a problem in Canada will say that that's the issue. But that's not really the problem. The problem is that we have nobody to take the place of the people that are there. And it doesn't matter that I'm looking at the Liberals, I'm looking at the Conservative, I can be looking at the PPC, NDP, Green, obviously. But I don't see anything better on the horizon at all. Like, even on the Conservative part, we're still trying, it's been announced now, it's been confirmed by Carney that Pierre Poilievre is going to have a by-election in Alberta. They even put somebody in Alberta that's going to run against Pierre Poilievre, which obviously he's not going to win. Pierre Poilievre is going to win that riding, no problem. Yeah. It's a fucking give me. It's a gimme, right? But he's not going to fix shit. So what are we looking at here? Because it's four elections in a row. We're still exactly where we are. We're a lot worse than where we were. And I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, because we keep on having weak ass fucking leaders.
Well, yeah, and I guess that's why I said I'm simplifying a little bit, because I guess the tricky part, it's easy to say we need better leaders. I guess it's another to actually have have better leaders. But to the extent that it's a valid question. Who's going to replace who's going to lead? I don't know. I don't see anyone right now that really makes me think. Honestly, probably Danielle Smith is who would jump out to me, but for obvious reasons, she's not going to be and involved in federal politics anytime soon.
No.
But in some ways, you just kind of have to wait for that sort of that charismatic or politician to rise up. I'll say it to be polite. I don't think Poilievre is that guy. I'll say I feel he obviously is not, in my opinion. But no. Who is? I don't know. What do you guys think? I guess, first of all, to the question of the day, what does it mean to be Canadian to you? Where do you guys think? You guys think we're on the right track? If not, tell us. Diagnose the problem for us, and give us a solution if you even if you have that as much, and we'll kind of discuss it. Today's going to be a little more of a relaxed show. We're not going to, go line by line on topics of the day like we normally do. Just figured, don't even know who's even going to watch on Canada Day. Everyone might be out drinking or sleeping or whatever the fuck y'all are doing. But we're just gonna kind of have a Canada Day themed chat. But yeah, let us know how you feel about it. Angry Beaver says Canada cannot come back anymore. We let too much other stuff take precedence. Now, if we go back, we are the bad guys. We'll get hated anyways. Pitiful. Yeah, I mean, I never think that we've gone to. I'm just never going to think that we've gone too far and can never come back. I think you can always come home. Now, it's one thing to say that. It's another to actually. I mean, if you're going in the wrong direction, no matter what, doesn't matter how far you've gone, even if you've gone 1 trillion miles in the wrong direction, you can't ever get better until you turn around and start going back. And I mean, we need to focus on that first. Let's worry about the turnaround first, and then we'll worry about how long it'll take us to get back. But I don't want to be, I don't think it's beneficial that helps anyone to be defeatist about it, even if it's correct, right? Even if, let's say, theoretically, it is too far, too late. I think it's always better to assume that it can be fixed and then to work towards that, unless you just want to kind of, say fuck it, throw your hands up and go live in a cave somewhere the rest of your life. Which, I mean, some people might do that,
or just find a country that is not as messed up as Canada.
Yeah,
because
I mean,
Angry Beaver's comment, I agree with it. At the point where I do not believe, can we come back? Can it get better? Sure, but it's going to get worse before it gets better. And I don't think that Canada will ever be the same. And Pat Dodds is kind of hitting it right in the head, if you ask me, saying last Canada Day for Alberta and Saskatchewan. So great. We are so done with Canada from Alberta and Saskatchewan. We love Trump, hate the losers, East and BC. Well, Pat, I don't want to say I understand your statement because I'm not an Albertan. I'm from Montreal, but I travel quite a lot. At the same time, calling people names is not the best way to go. I understand your frustration, but most Albertans that I speak to, although they want to separate, I don't hear them speak like that. So it's interesting, but I feel your frustrations. But the point I'm trying to make is that I do believe that he has a point in that could be the last Canada Day or the second to last, because the referendums are somewhere in 2026. We don't know exactly when, but I think that it's a mix of what Angry is saying and what Pat is saying, that I do not believe that I strongly believe that Mark Carney is the last Prime Minister of Canada as we know it. And it's just that without Alberta, without Saskatchewan's not, I'm sorry for Saskatchewan, but it's not our main driver here. Without Alberta, it's going to be a problem.
Well,
it's going to be a massive problem for Canada.
I think if Alberta leaves, Saskatchewan's almost certainly going to go too, and probably BC. But even if it's just Alberta, yeah, Canada's cooked as a country. They essentially fund so much of, we might limp along, but we won't be anything like, Canada. We won't be a first world wealthy nation, if we even are. Doesn't even really feel like we are. I think, just logistically, it's not going to be, even if the referendum happened and they voted to leave, that would just be the start of the, it's like, when Brexit, remember Brexit happened and they voted to leave the EU. They didn't actually leave like 4 or 5 years later. Like, these things do take a lot of time politically. So they'll probably, Alberta will probably be in Canada officially for a couple of years at least. But yeah, it's going to be a consequential year for sure. It does feel like a crossroads here for Canada and Canadians. And, I'm just going to be the eternal optimist and keep, to the extent of what can we do? Well, really, what can we do personally? Not a whole lot. We can do what we're doing. We can have a show, have a like whatever size platform you have, you can speak out. Hopefully you I don't know, can convince or reach other people. Other than that, other than vote, maybe attend protests and that kind of stuff, there isn't a whole lot you can do personally. In some ways, it kind of feels like we're observers to our own story. But Yeah, I don't know. It definitely Canada Day feels a little bit different this year than past years. But I see it as more. Like I said, I don't think it's too late yet. But maybe I'm being naive. Maybe it is. But I know one thing is for sure. You can't go back and fix things until you start that journey back. What's the saying? A journey of a million steps starts with one. We got to, at least, if we have any hope, we have to turn the car around and at least start in that other direction.
Yeah, you know what, Kim RS, I agree with her. Not just observers funding our
Yeah.
own demise. And this kind of goes in combination with Angry Beaver saying, but Canada doesn't want to be fixed. They're proving this time and time again. And see, this is my point. Like, you have such a vast amount of people that are, as much as you can agree that or disagree that there was a rigged election, I don't believe that Carney was elected. I think he was selected. They kind of changed the rules for who could lead the party before this election. But let's say we put that aside, right? Let's say that we assume that there was a fair election. I know enough people and I interact with them on a daily basis that voted for Carney and still don't regret their choices. So I would argue that there's probably half of the people in Canada that voted for Carney. It was a choice and they don't regret their choice. So this tells me this is where I agree with Angry Beaver that I don't think that a vast majority of Canadians want this country to be fixed or even sees a problem with this country because they haven't really been affected by it. Because we've talked about this so many times on the show where it's not the young generation. It's not your and my generation that voted Liberal. It's not the 25-year-old. It's not even the 18-year-olds that voted for the Liberals. It's literally the boomers that have not been affected by anything yet. They're the same. Like they probably, if they don't have a job, they have enough equity in their house. They probably own more than one that they're capable of just surviving whatever the fuck's coming. And they're not really impacted by it. So they are not seeing the problems that you and I could see. And as Angry Beaver is saying, I think that's why I agree with his statement saying that Canada, at the end of the day, there's such a vast majority of people that don't want Canada to be fixed because they don't even see a problem. They haven't been affected by the issues.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree with that. But I mean, that's kind of the same. I take what you just said and I agree with it. And that's kind of where I come to my conclusion that, it's not necessarily too late yet because, as you said, they just haven't been affected yet. But once they become affected by it, at least in theory, one would hope, you think they might start to be like reconsider their decision. Now, like you said about, I actually don't think if you voted for Carney, let's say you voted for him back in April when the election was, if you voted for him, I wouldn't really think that there'd be too many people that voted for him and regret it yet. I don't think he's done enough poor decisions, enough major mistakes yet. You got to remember too, me and you, because of what we do, we scour the news and we really dig deeply into these issues. So we can see some things that the average Canadian just doesn't get into the issues that deep, right? They haven't probably, if you ask the average Canadian, even the average Carney voter, what he's even done, I bet you they'd probably say, oh, we hosted the G7. That went well. And that's about it. Nothing's really sank in yet because there hasn't been anything that's been, but it's still early, right? It's still, things are going to add up. They're going to pile up. If, all it takes is one fucking home equity tax and you're going to cut that boomer support rate in half.
I don't even think that's going to happen. I don't even think that the boomers are going to be that pissed off by it because they're still going to be okay. Even if you start taxing it, they're still going to be okay. That's the thing. I don't see them. If the past 5 years, if the past 10 years of liberal policies have not changed your mind if the lockdowns that they put in place, where they took literally the rights away from the freedoms of people away, and you still don't see a problem with it? I don't know what it's going to take for somebody that does not want to wake up because
Well,
as
you
much as
can't. Yeah.
no, but as much as you say that the average person is not informed as much as you and I or our listeners are, at the end of the day, that there's only one person to blame for that, and it's them. It's themselves individually. And I guarantee you, it's not because of a lack of information. It's not because of a lack of time. It is a choice. It is a choice that people make, that they don't want to know because they don't want to get involved, or they know that in their mind there's nothing that can be done. They're just going with it. It's the same person like the police officer that says, oh well, I know the people that are corrupt, I know I could do more, but I don't want to lose my pension. This is the type of thinking that gets us into the situation that we're in right now.
Well,
And that's why I always wonder, because as somebody that does everything remotely, I can literally leave, and chances are I will eventually leave and not come back unless I have customers to go see, people I want to go see, like families that I want to see. But outside of that, I have the power to do so. But above all, I have the balls to do it. I've done it before, and I'll fucking do it again. Nobody controls my whereabouts unless you close the border like you did 4 years ago. But the point I'm trying to make is that the average Canadian is not ballsy enough to do anything, and I don't know what it's going to take for them to realize that it's gone too far. And look at the UK. The UK is not what it was 10 years ago.
no.
And yet they're still there. Yes, you have guys like Tommy Robinson that's actually trying to do something in the UK that started somewhat of a movement that ended up in jail. Now he's free. Love or hate the guy, he's still doing what seems to be right. And I don't know the guy personally. I've never met him, but what he stands for, I agree with, because I say a lot of the same fucking shit he's saying in the UK here in Canada. So, but what is it going to take for people to wake up? And do people even want to wake up? There was a great skit. It was not a comedy skit, but it was a skit that it was a little video, probably a minute long, back from the 70s, maybe even the 60s. And it was a guy on the radio, and you could see him talking. And all he was saying is, people are always going to conform as long as you give them a little space that they feel belongs to them.
Mhm.
So, oh, you can take my rights away, but that's okay. But as long as I feel free in my living room, even if outside of my living room I'm not free, or I know in my head that I'm not free in my living room, it's okay. I'm here, and I can somehow hide from everything in my living room, and it's going to be okay. And I agree with him. Like I should find that video because it's powerful as shit. But
I mean, I agree with that, and I think it can be frustrating for people who are engaged in politics, and especially who talk about it all the time, to sort of, you almost want to shake people and wake them up. At the same time, you got to understand human nature, and to a certain extent, it's just like getting mad at the rain for raining or the wind for blowing. Most people do not want to be involved in politics, and I don't blame them. Right? They want to live their lives. They want to work their jobs, be with their family, spend time with their friends, do all those things. The problem is, a lot of people don't see the connection between the politics and the people that govern the society they're in, and being able to do all those things, right? They just, in a perfect world, none of us would have to be engaged in politics, because we would have a system or leaders who were effective and honest and authentic, and we would know that they would make the right decisions for us, and we could just go about our lives, right? Obviously, that world doesn't actually exist. I think there's I've thought about this before. You can almost think of like as a paradox of democracy. You might even consider it a fatal flaw, where good governance breeds an apathetic population, people who aren't involved in politics, because it's good governance, right? And you don't need to be involved with the day-to-day. But then an apathetic public leads to bad governance. It's almost like that great turning cycle, right? That we've talked about: hard times, soft men. Good governance leads to an apathetic population, but an apathetic population leads to bad governance. So we often have this, you could call it a fatal flaw or a paradox in democracy. And it does seem like, much of what kind of we're doing here today is just sort of, I guess, venting or musing. I think, I understand what you're saying, the frustration of like, I don't think, what will take to wake up Canadians. And I think of like famous times in history, like think of like the French Revolution, right? The French peasantry stormed the Bastille in 1789. And you can think of like even in 1779, 10 years before, you can imagine how unheard of it would have been to get rid of the king, the French king. But I bet you many people probably said much of the same thing. What is it going to take to wake us up? Just because of the tyranny of King Louis, the whatever the fuck he was, XIV. And my point is, I think when you're in the moment, it always seems impossible to get out of it until it happens, until something changes. I'm sure up until the moment that they overthrew the monarchy in France, it would have been unthinkable to do so. And then it actually happened. So I guess my point is just, even in the moment, if it feels like, the storm is never going to end, it feels like that up until it actually does. So I guess it's more just, trying to be, keep plugging away, keep doing your thing, keep doing our thing. I don't ever think that it's too late for anything.
But I think that's where you're being naive, because you're comparing people that were hard to a bunch of soft individual. The vast majority of Canadians are soft. They're not hard people. They're not going to go out and fight their government. They're not. In French time, they were.
No.
You were talking about people that were used to hard life. Even good life back then was a hard fucking life. They were not living the same type of life we're living today. So the type of individual were completely different. And this, to me, is done on purpose, right? We've been softened by indoctrination for decades now. Most people have never been in a fight. Like, think about it this way. I think they say 90 to 95% of men have never been in an actual altercation, which is insane to me. It's absolutely fucking insane to me. If you've never been in a fight, you don't fucking know who you are. As a man, you have no clue what and who you are if you've never fought, you've never gone toe-to-toe with someone. But the point is that we are soft by nature, and we're not the French. Like, we're not the French that beheaded, that invented a device in order to behead their kings.
For sure.
We are not them.
I mean,
we're definitely not them.
Fair comment. But on the other hand, we don't need to go in and behead people. We can literally just vote if we just do it, right? Like, we have a much easier pathway to actually affect change. I think.
But this, I agree with that comment where Kim is saying if voting mattered, they wouldn't let us do it. Author, can't remember, sorry. That's a famous quote. I don't know who said it either, but I agree with that statement too. If voting really mattered, they wouldn't let us do it.
I don't know, man. I can't get behind that kind of thinking. Like, is it true? Is
Why
it real?
not?
Possibly, but like, it's just a defeatist attitude, man. Like, if that were true, then how did Donald Trump get elected? Because he's absolutely not, the establishment pick. Like, it's just people who say stuff like that, they ignore all the times when it doesn't really apply, and then they like, I do believe current. I think I'm sure there were definitely shenanigans. We covered them in the election, but I think certainly in that moment in April, I think if you ran the election again the next day or the next day, I think you would have had more or less the same result. People were scared. People are sheep. They were convinced by this elbows up nonsense. They were taught to be afraid, and it was very effective propaganda. But
so let me ask you this, because you and I agree on this one. Like, I do believe that even if I don't believe in our voting system, and the last election proved it, like Election Canada made so many mistakes that they haven't rectified yet, that it's you have the proof right there that they don't give a fuck that it's fixed. Now, how do you explain Maxime Bernier? Because you and I both agree with that Maxime Bernier got played, not this election, but the election before. They actually changed the rules so that he wouldn't debate.
Yeah,
so
no.
This is my point, right? I think it's very naive of you to say that the voting system actually is in place. But let's assume that there's a portion of it, or at one point it did matter. Let's assume that. You look at the last election, and you and I we've been covering this from the beginning, where multiple places, Election Canada made mistakes. They still haven't rectified them, and the person that won that shouldn't have won is still in place. And we were shown that some votes don't matter, and this is proof that this is fact. Election Canada has acknowledged that. They just don't care now. But that's my point, right? And I think you and I can both agree that in 2019, I believe they changed the election the election definition in order to prevent Maxime Bernier from going on stage, on the debate stage. I think we agree with that too. So how can you say that our voting system works?
Well, you're putting words in my mouth. Changing... That's not what I said. No. I just said I believe Carney would have like by the votes tallied. I think he probably won it. Doesn't mean there weren't shenanigans. Doesn't mean that the shenanigans probably gave him more of a lead. But I don't think there was an actual majority for Poilievre that just got completely shut out. I don't think the system is perfect. Like I don't think it was stolen from Poilievre. If you had some way to literally individually face to face talk to every single Canadian, ask them who they voted for, and you tallied it, I think Carney still would have won. Would the margin have been as big? Probably not. There's definitely a liberal bias built in the system that we
agree.
Yeah, it's not.
You and I agree, and I will say it out loud. I don't believe that Pierre would have won. I'm surprised that he didn't win, but after seeing the exit polls, I'm not surprised, and having spoken to those people that voted for Carney and are okay with it. I think that what we saw, I'm not surprised by it, because I really think that a lot of Canadians would have voted for Carney. But that's not what I'm saying. Is our system is rigged, because there's no way now, since Maxime Bernier, there's no way for a new party. I could start my own party tomorrow, and there is no way that by next election I would be able to be on the debate stage. It's impossible. No. I have to have elected people. So there is no way for me right now to change the system. There's zero way for a citizen to respect the system that is currently in place, play by the rules that are established right now, in order to really change the outcome, because liberals are not changing. Conservatives are as bad as the liberals are, if you ask me. So what else is there? What else is there? There's no way for us to use the systems that are currently in place in order to change the outcome, because there's nobody, the rules are not in our favor. That's the point I'm trying to make, is that no matter how you look at it, we're fucked. And I'm not hearing that, as bad as this sounds, the only person that talked about election reform was Justin Trudeau years and years and years ago. His first time, I think it was in 2015, and he got elected on a promise to change the electoral system by, instead of having it first past the post, he would have it as an equal representation. However votes a party receives, that's how much power they have in Parliament or in the House of Commons. And obviously they never implemented that, because he realized that, of course he did, because that means that he wouldn't be able to get a majority anymore. Like, it would be extremely hard for people to vote majority. And not only that, but they should have, there's certain electoral system that will allow you to choose different people to say, that's my first pick, that's my second pick, that's my third pick.
Yep.
And then you can, so we're not going to see that. So no matter how you look at it, the current system will not allow for a new breed of politicians to take over. And you have to play the system that's there. So that's what I'm saying. As much as I don't think that the election would have changed in the current system, even if you reran it right now, I don't think it would change. I think a lot of people would still vote for Carney. I could see a minority on either side. It's a shuffle to me. You could play you could throw the dice, and whoever wins, even if all the votes are respected. But the point in the matter is that no matter where we look, it's soft. No matter where we look, we don't have people that really want to change the system. And so let's again assume that it's possible. Assume that it's possible for us to change the system.
Yep.
I don't see it.
So, I mean, I'll take a slightly contrarian perspective, a devil's advocate. And I'm not even saying I believe this, but let's just say, like, because I agree with you that the system is skewed or rigged, you could say, to protect itself, to keep continuity. And you could say that might be a good thing, so that any time for any scenario to happen where you do a massive overhaul of the system would require a large majority. Like you couldn't just squeak it by. And some people might argue that's a good thing, because if not, maybe you could have instability where a system gets changed every 4 years, and that wouldn't be good. I'm not even saying I believe that, but I'm just saying perhaps this is a counterpoint to that. But I think it's an interesting discussion. I wanted to
let's take some comments.
Yeah, I want to take some comments here. Specifically, this one from have we taken Tammy's here yet, or is that still up? Okay, so Tammy says, I don't think Canada will go back there because there are enough people in Canada that want the old Canada. Us 40-somethings remember, for whatever reason, too many here seem happy with things now. Yeah. I mean, I think we're probably not ever going to go back, right? And I think we just need to accept that. Doesn't mean we can't get to a better place, right? The people who do remember what it was like, maybe we can, we don't have to resign ourselves to what we see right now. And again, I'm fully aware this might be a naive view, but to me, in my thinking, it's better to be naive and actually trying to do something than I get the instinct to sort of be like, well, fuck it, nothing we can do. And I think everybody feels that at some point, but I think it is important to kind of pick yourself up and be like, you know what, I'm going to do what I can. And if it's not enough, it's not enough. At least you can look yourself in the mirror, right? At least you can sleep at night. But I agree with that comment. People our age, early 40s and higher, I think we do remember a Canada that was different. And it's hard to separate how much of it is like leadership, our politics, how much of it is just change, technological change, right? The world is different. Kids today aren't out. Remember when we were kids, right? You'd go out, grab a pack of hot dogs and go out with your friends in the woods for fucking 12 hours or something, make a campfire, build a fort, whatever the fuck you did. Your mom, if you weren't back by like 10 p.m. at night, your mom might freak out then, but like nowadays kids can't fucking cross the road without holding mommy's hand. And that's just one. We could probably go down and identify a million things that are different from when we were kids, but I think society has become soft, as you said. But again, if you go by that turning theory, which I think is broadly accurate, all that means is that we're now in the hard times. That's gonna breed the hard men.
That I can agree with you. That one I will agree.
Then the question is, I guess, how long does that take? When does that take? Wise Guy says, and thank you, Wise Guy, for becoming a member. I see that renewed his membership.
Were you not a member?
He was. I think he was. He must have been before, but I think it just must have renewed or something. Wise Guy said, when all this started at the beginning of the pandemic, many thought our rights would protect us. Then we found out we have no rights and protesting doesn't work. So that's a good comment. And I wanted to riff off of that and ask you guys. So, when we talk about, I guess, the question of the day, right? How do you feel about the direction Canada's going in? What would you say if you think it's going in the wrong direction? What would you say? Maybe just, I know it's a very complex topic, and I'm asking you, Nico, and I'm also asking any listeners out there. I know there's probably 10 or 20 or 50 or 100 things you could write down, but if you just had to pick one or two, what would you say is like the biggest cause for where we are, or just the biggest thing we need to tackle to try to right the ship? I have to imagine, and I'll let you answer here in a second, I have to imagine this specific issue with the pandemic is probably central to that. But to me, I would say, like as Wise Guy says, protesting doesn't work. And I could sense your frustration, Nico, when you talked about this earlier, the sense that it doesn't work. But I don't know. It does work. Because for me, it worked on me, right? Like when I remember the trucker convoy, I was still of the mind that like, oh, well, this is necessary. And I wasn't anti-lockdown. And when I first heard about the protesters, I was like, oh, just kind of right wingers. I kind of looked at them the way I look at the left wing activists now, right? Like just all whiners out in the streets. But minds don't always change immediately, right? You listen to the arguments, and then over time, and I can't even put my finger on exactly one. It wasn't like I woke up one day and something changed. But when I look back from now, and that wasn't that long ago, was it? 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I've definitely changed. My mindset has definitely changed. I would be out there protesting if a similar thing happened again today. So I guess I'm living proof that minds do get changed. People do, like, I understand the frustration that it's not happening fast enough. But I do think, there's a famous quote. It's from an Ernest Hemingway book. And it was a guy was asked the question, how did you go bankrupt? And he said, well, 2 ways, gradually and then all of a sudden. And I think that phrase, gradually and then all of a sudden, is applicable to a lot of things, especially politics. I think you're going to see like right now, we're probably in the gradually phase where it seems like people are changing their minds, but individually, slowly. And then all of a sudden, I use the example of the French Revolution. You could apply it to then too. I'm sure individual peasants were changing their minds, but it still felt like nothing was happening. And then boom, fucking French king's head is in the guillotine basket, right? So, my whole point in saying this is like, it's valid to be frustrated, but I don't think it's try to kind of say essentially a pep talk, right? Keep your chin up. Keep doing what we're doing, keep speaking out for what you believe in. And I think, that is the only way to affect real change. And maybe it is all completely rigged and nothing we can ever do and say is going to do anything. But if that's the case, it doesn't matter anyways. So we may as well give it our best shot.
See, this is where I got to be very careful what I say because I'm on YouTube right now.
Yep.
I believe that what the French did is the only solution. And this is
right.
where
you
I
have
think,
to be careful.
Yep. I'm not saying exactly what I'm talking about. I'm just saying at one point in history, the French did something right. We know
have to come up with a whoop whoop slice.
We know exactly my ancestors did something right at one point, and I don't see it. And this is where I want to believe that protesting still works, but I've seen it not work. And I don't know, again, I don't know what it's going to take for people to wake up and really not just protest, but take it a step further. And that's where I can't say what it is. So,
well, I mean, I think we all understand.
Hopefully this makes sense to people.
We understand what you're saying. I don't think that we need to go that far. I think there are still, like, I do agree with you that the voting system is skewed for sure. And if you're in a neck and neck vote between the liberal and the conservative, and the liberal won just barely, I would probably agree. Like, yeah, this could be a stolen election. Like maybe it's 2 or 3 points, whatever it is. So again, and that's not right. That's a problem with the system, and that should be fixed. That should be rectified. But I do think it's possible to fix the system within the system. Call me a naive moderate, but I guess in some ways those I'm sure if we go back to the French Revolution, you probably had peasants who were. It's probably like that's that gradually and then all of a sudden thing, right? You probably get people who think you can fix the system within it, and then eventually a critical mass of people go to the side where you say, no, there's only one way to fix this, and that's when that kind of shit happens. Maybe that's kind of the same thing going on here. I just think it can be fixed without the revolutionary solution, if you will.
Only non-violent way, and I've been pondering this for years and years and years and years, and the only non-violent way that I see for anything to change is to Canadians to stop paying their taxes. And not even, you don't even need to stop paying your taxes because most people are taxed at the source. But stop filing, stop complying. Just stop complying. There's few people that are going to get in trouble, but you're going to overwhelm the system by not putting your paperwork together for them. So you allow them to do it for you. Just don't comply. They want you to pay in order to be able to drive. Don't pay anymore. If there's only 4 or 5 or 100 people that do it, that's one thing. But if there's millions of people that do it, we're more than they are. But it needs, if you want to keep it non-violent, which is obviously always a good idea, you have to do something drastic and don't pay your taxes, overwhelm the system, and force them to change. Because at the end of the day, if they don't get our money, they can't really do much. And we're a lot more than they are. It's just you need to have people that have the balls to do so. And that's the only thing I can see. Like you need to take really drastic measures trying to keep it non-violent, because especially in a violent way, we're not very well equipped to fight our police officers, to fight our, even if you think that it's possible, we're not really well equipped compared to who they are. But it needs to be drastic, and just the type of protest that we've done, let's say during the freedom convoy, is not enough, and it didn't change much. Like at the end, as much as it sparked world interest, that it did change something in a way where it changed people's mindset. They woke people like you, for example, but it just gave more opportunity to the government to become more tyrannical, and then it kind of died out. And no politicians outside of a guy like Maxime Bernier really spoke against it. So it's, I get what you're saying. I think it's very naive. I think that the past decade has showed you that you can protest all you want, and it doesn't seem to work very well. There are other solutions, but they need to be very drastic. And just picketing in the street does not work. It doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, I mean, like what I would say to that is just, it seems like it doesn't work until it does, right? Is how I see it.
But when's the last time it worked? Name me one time it worked in Canada in the past 5 decades.
Well, I mean, how do you define
never
work? I would say all the liberal progressive gains of the last couple of decades have been from doing exactly that. Like you can reverse those gains by using the same tactics. Activism.
How can you reverse anything if both main parties don't want it to change?
Well, you elect people who do want it to change, right? Like that's
who does?
Now. What's that?
But that's the point. You go back to exactly what you said at the beginning without having an actual solution. We all agree with what you're saying. Nobody's debating that if we had better candidates and we have people that had the balls to do what needs to get done, we'd be in a better place. But there doesn't seem to exist. No matter who's elected right now, it seems they're all soft as fuck, and they're all playing the game from the system that clearly was never designed to be changed from inside the system.
Yeah. I mean, I think, I think, it's, I guess that's why it's good for good debate topics, because it makes for good conversation, because there isn't a firm answer. Joe Stradamus says, the biggest issue you guys are not seeing is that the boomers are the last generation that got paid a living wage, and they voted for the people who crashed the system that made them well off. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the big complaints about the boomers, right? They climbed the golden ladder and then they pulled it up behind them. And we see that in the last election, where, as you said, as you alluded to earlier, the demographics of literally every age group was voted conservative, and then a massive liberal for jump on the boomers. And we discussed in detail why that is. But the fact of the matter is, they're voting for a system that worked for them, that they still think exists, and it does not exist. And that's sort of what we were talking about at the beginning of the show, and why it seems like, what is it going to take to wake people up? It's because they haven't had a reason to wake up yet. The system still works for them because they've got their, 1.5 homes paid off that they did on their middle class income as a fucking contractor or a nurse or a teacher in a way you could never do today. And all they do now is they like, oh, it's just the young people. They can't pull themselves up by the bootstraps, and they don't understand the world has changed. It's not the same system. And so, I guess to the question of what is it going to take, I would say either boomers to actually be affected by the policies that they vote, or just for them to die. And younger people who do recognize that the world has changed, replace them and vote the people out who put us in this position.
Joe, this is so I don't know why you're saying it's an issue that we're not saying, because as Rob said, we've addressed it multiple times, but I think the issue you're not seeing is the boomers don't give a fuck. At the end of the day, that's what's going on right now.
Yeah.
The last election proved it to me. Not only did they get access to probably the best years in North America, they just don't give a fuck. Because this is not a surprise. You can look, they just need to talk to their own kids and they will know what it is that's going on right now. Talk to their grandchildren. It's just they don't care. Like, it's easy for us to say that, oh, they're not impacted, blah, 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 blah. Doesn't matter. They don't give a fuck. Because if they had compassion, if they cared, they would realize that this is a fact. They just need to look around. They choose not to. So it's not just they're the last generation to have like that got paid a living wage. But at the end of the day, they're to blame for the system to be where it is right now. It's their voting. They voted for policies that kept their money in their houses and in their bank accounts. They passed the bills to future generation, and this is what's happening right now. They just don't give a fuck. Like, at the end of the day, we need to start calling spade a spade. Most boomers don't give a flying fuck. They just don't care. Because if they did, they would change what's going on right now. They wouldn't vote for the same policies time and time again. You cannot convince me that they don't see what's going on. They just can't afford it. They just don't care because they still can't afford it. They don't give a fuck. There's no way that a baby boomer cannot look at his checkbook, because obviously they don't use technology, but they don't look at their checkbook from 10 years ago to now to see how much cost has gone up. Everybody's seen that 33% price increase on average on everything. Everybody's seen it over the past 10 years. You feel it everywhere. It's just they can afford it. They don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
It's plain and simple. Let's stop trying to sugarcoat it. They don't give a fuck. They don't care. They just don't care. It's unfortunate, but they don't care.
Yeah, I mean that's the gist of it. Pam says, "Happy 51st State Day, everyone." Yeah. Happy 51st day to all who celebrate. Angry
Talk
Beaver
about pissing people off. That would have been made for a great T-shirt. Happy 51st day, everyone.
That would have been good. That would have been really good. Angry Beaver. Good. Nico, can we get the South Park clip for Blame Canada? Seems very appropriate. Yeah, we'll see. Oh, yeah, here he corrects South Park, and then he says, "Oh my God, I can't type." We'll keep a few more. There's actually some really good comments here down. Angry Beaver says, as a weed lover, total legalization of marijuana helped ruin this country. And that was to the question that I asked earlier, is what do you think one of the main problems is if you had to choose things? It needed to be decriminalization, not legalization. I mean, I can see the argument perhaps indirectly, like the same mindset that maybe led to decriminalization. I don't actually think decrim
it's a symptom.
Yeah, I don't think weed, like I'm a big weed lover too. I like to smoke most nights before I go to bed. But
why the fuck does that not surprise me at all?
I mean, it helps me sleep, man. It helps with the nightmares. It expands my mind.
No, it doesn't. Let's talk ayahuasca. You want to expand your mind? Let's talk ayahuasca.
I'm not doing ayahuasca every night before bed.
Oh, you can't. You just can't.
But I think, the same mindset that I guess you'd have to dig into that a little more. I guess difference between legalization and decriminalization, I don't see it as a huge issue, unless you could say maybe that's the same mindset that led to these injections, safe injection sites.
It is. But
yeah, and that's a valid argument. I understand that point. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was going to say it's the same principle that the Romans figured out thousands of years ago, where if you keep the masses entertained,
bread and circuses, right,
and their mind on something else than politics, everything goes. And again, during the lockdowns, if you remember, I'm not a big weed smoker. Like, I have CBD because I've had so many surgeries that it helps. Like, there's some days the pain is just there, so I will have a bit of CBD, but there's no buzz to it, right? It's really just for the inflammation. But if you remember, during lockdown, the gyms were closed. I couldn't go to the gym. Martial arts school were closed. Anything that had to do with health, really activities, was closed. Yet LCBOs and SAQs were still open, and the wheat store, the government-funded wheat store, were still open. So right then and there, it tells you where their interests are. So I understand what you're saying, Angry Beaver. It's not the problem, but it indicates that there is a problem. That's a massive symptom
Yeah.
to tell me that, to tell me that churches can be open, yet when did you need people more that you're aligned with, religious or not? This is the time that you needed to be around other people that you had the same values. Yet one of those places like community centers were closed, churches were closed, gyms were closed, martial arts schools were closed. But don't worry, bruh. Your alcohol and weed is still widely available for you. No problem. You can get it. Just make sure you stay in your little living room and you shut the fuck up.
Well, I mean, you can, yeah, exactly, right? You can, they're going to separate communities and drive wedges in between people, but you better not fuck with that government tax revenue or they are not going to be happy. Joe Stradamus, famous quote: "It's not votes who count; it's who counts the votes."
Amen.
I mean, fair. Yeah, fair.
And
point.
I say that on purpose. Amen, Joe. Amen.
Angry Beaver, Canada is too far down the liberal communist ideal pathway. Again, I don't agree they're too far down. I think you can always come back. It's just a matter of having the will to do it. Now we can debate if Canada is ever going to do it. That's an open question, and I wouldn't think that maybe they can't, maybe we can, but I don't think it's too far if we actually have the national will to do so. It's just a question. I mean, of course, it's easy to say that. It's an entirely different thing to actually do it, of course.
Before you take some of the comments, I want to show something.
Yep.
I haven't. There's two videos. There's a video from Mark Carney, that's wishing us a happy Canada Day. I didn't watch it, but it's on X, so I figured we'll show it. And there's one from Pierre Poliev. I want to see what the difference is. And again, we're doing live with you guys. I did not watch those videos first. So let's see what our Prime Minister Mark Carney have to tell us today.
158 years ago.
Oops. Where's the volume on this? The volume's on. Can you hear anything?
A few provinces bet.
Yep.
Shit, why does it work for you guys? Doesn't work for me. That's interesting. Hold on. I think I know why. Yep, that is why. We will change it here. Bang, bang. So let's do that again.
158 years ago, a few provinces bet on a big idea, that they'd be stronger together than they ever could be apart. They were right. They became a new federation that's now grown into our strong, bilingual, multicultural, ambitious country. A country built on the values of freedom, democracy, justice, generosity, and humility, because we know that we can always be better. Our story didn't begin at Confederation. For thousands of years, Indigenous peoples have called this land home. And our country's next chapter will be written together in true partnership.
Gotta have the land acknowledgement.
Inuit and Métis. Our shared history has been marked by inflection points, moments where Canada has had to step up. On the battlefields of Vimy Ridge in World War I, on the beaches of Normandy in World War II, and in the homes of Gander after the 9/11 terror attacks. Now we face another such moment. The world is changing. Old friendships are fraying. Our economy is being buffered by a trade war we didn't start. Our values are being
got to get the dig in at Americans.
Democracy and freedoms that we must resist. As the world becomes more divided.
Hey, motherfucker, you literally just dropped the tax.
You're the divider. Yeah. You're the one dividing.
No, but you're the weakest fucking leader. I would argue that Trudeau was almost stronger leader than you. I can't believe I'm saying this out loud. This sounds so wrong. But you're literally a weak-ass fucking leader. And you're telling us we need to resist? Like you're still going to sell that fucking elbows up bullshit? When you dropped your pants once again. And I don't think that tax should have never existed in the first place. But you literally just, all Trump had to do is tweet a fucking post and you dropped your pants so fast that he didn't even have time to wipe. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Motherfucker, that guy's a twat.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty typical. It's the same nonsense you'd expect from Carney, from any. Polyev would have given a similar ridiculous speech. I mean,
but hold on. We have a speech from Polyev afterwards.
Okay. Oh, nice.
No. I wanted see, there you go. You see where I'm going. So let's finish this.
I thought I like the whole like our story started like, well, no, we're talking about Canada's story. Canada didn't start until we, Europeans got here. Like this would not have become Canada if they never came here. And nothing racist about that. That's just obviously Indigenous people are a part of our story, but Canada's story did not start before the Europeans came here.
And dangerous, Canadians are uniting. Together, we will build one Canadian economy, connected by major projects, powered by Canadian energy, transformed by Canadian technology, and crafted by Canadian workers. Together, we're breaking down barriers across this country so you can buy Canadian everywhere and work anywhere.
Unless
together we'll
ships.
Rebuild, rearm, and reinvest in our armed forces. Because Canadian leadership is defined not only by the strength of our values, but also by the value of our strength. This is the greatest nation on earth.
No, it's
together,
not.
We'll keep making it even better.
Worse.
Happy Canada.
Wrong. Hold on. So that is Mr. Mark Carney. Now I want to see what a conservative has to say about this, which I'm not going to hold my breath because we know who the conservative person is. But hey, let's be hopeful. So here is the soon-to-be re-leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, Pierre Polyev.
Nothing. No, I don't.
Never had a chance to bury him.
Can you restart it? It was not. It was on the stage.
Oh,
yeah.
All that beautiful impact for no reason. So once again, this is the conservative re-leader of the Conservative Party, Mr.
Leader in waiting.
We don't know his name. We know he died on the battlefields of the First World War. He was probably a young man, had a mother and a father, people who loved him, those who waited for him to come home, but never had a chance to bury him or say goodbye. But about 80 years later, Canada brought him home. His remains laid to rest at the tomb of the unknown soldier beside our National War Monument. This headstone, which was his in Europe before he was brought home, is preserved here at the Canadian War Museum. It is a haunting reminder that what we have in this country was never guaranteed. Freedom was never free. Prosperity was never freely or easily handed down. Those who came before us earned it by sacrificing everything so that we could inherit something. Their names are mostly unknown to us. They are the quiet heroes, just like so many other heroes, not only in the armed forces, but over time and across our land. The pioneers who worked the land, the builders who built on the land, the entrepreneurs who enriched the land, and the soldiers, sailors, and airmen who protect the land. Today, we thank the mostly unknown heroes of our country, the entrepreneurs and explorers, the adventurers and artists, the warriors and workers, the pioneers and patriots. Like them, and like this unnamed but never forgotten hero, we must fight for our country, for a country that is strong, self-reliant, sovereign, and stands on its own feet. For the promise that anyone from anywhere can achieve anything. That hard work gets you a great life. For a country that is worthy of the countless and even nameless patriots from whom we inherited all we have. So this Canada Day, let us be grateful for all those who came before us. And let us be worthy of our inheritance by working and fighting every day to pass on a country that is even better to those who will come after us. Thank you very much, and happy Canada Day.
That was better.
Mother. Again, this is how many fucking focus group did that have to go through? in
mean,
order to be
it's
approved.
Polyev. Yeah.
Once again, fucking Polyev showing the weak leader that he is. Carney had more passion in his message that was just recorded.
Come on now.
No, he did. Like, as much as I disagree with everything that he said, at least he seems to believe his own bullshit. That dude is so unauthentic. He had, once again, he had the opportunity to actually show that he has passion, that he cares. Somebody from his own fucking party is giving him an opportunity to become an MP again and be the leader. Nothing. He talked about the First World War. You know what? All my heart goes to veterans. If there's some people that need more recognition, is the veterans in Canada. No fucking questions about that. But his video would have been great 10 years ago in a Canada that was okay, that people could afford to fucking live here. That fucking guy, once again, shows that his testicles are not in his fucking boxers. He probably wears briefs, actually. So his testicles are not even in his briefs. And he's not talking to Canadians today. That is a message. You know who that resonates with? Fucking boomers again. There's nobody in their 40s, 30s, and 20s that look at this and they're like, oh, yeah, I agree with that. How about you address the fucking problems of today? And it fucking pisses me off because I expected a message like Carney made. That from Carney, that's what I expected. Obviously, he played his people and he said exactly what they wanted to hear. I fucking get it. Pierre Polyev, once again, he's supposed to represent me. That's the guy that represents me. Couldn't even fucking record a video without looking at us. You could see that he was reading off of a screen. He's not looking at the camera. The screen is just a bit under the fucking camera. I know, I use teleprompters and I know how to do it too. But you can tell that he's looking at a teleprompter. No passion, no nothing. I wouldn't be surprised that there's actually emoticon on the teleprompter to, shit. I need to show emotion here and there. Again, missed opportunity by Pierre Polyev to be the leader that conservatives need in Canada. But once again,
I mean, look, like we all know Polyev's, I think, personality sort of flaws. I think as a political animal, and we've talked about them in as such. But I mean, I'm gonna give him a break here. I'm gonna let some slide. I think it didn't feel overly authentic, but I thought the speech was fine. I thought it was decent. It was, as far as a Canada Day speech, it wasn't. It certainly didn't inspire me or anything, but at least he didn't, do any of the performative nonsense that you see from the left. Like there's no land acknowledgements. There's no, Canada exists only because this minority group built it, or there's no. I didn't see any fucking white shame or white guilt, and I guess. Setting the bar low. Maybe it's sad that that's all it takes to impress me these days in a political speech. But I don't know. I thought it was fine. I thought he, of course it was focus groups. Of course there wasn't too much feeling. I'm surprised he didn't bite an apple halfway through just to try to get the try to recapture the magic of that viral video of his. But I realize, like, sometimes I let my sort of personal opinions of these people cloud my judgment. And at first I was kind of like, oh, fucking Polyev. But then I was like, you know what? It's not. I didn't think it was a bad speech. I thought it was all right. And maybe it's just lowered expectations of what of maybe it's just a sad state of our political leaders that's all it took to get me to be like mildly impressed. But I didn't think he made any major mistakes, and I guess that's the most you can hope for.
I'm just gonna reply to this fucking twat of a video saying, "Why is it so hard for you to be authentic and about the and speak?"
Yeah, I mean, while you
hold on.
Why is it on the internet? I'll take some comments.
Why is it so hard for you to be authentic and speak about the issues that the average Canadian is facing every day? You keep getting opportunities to shine, and once again, you failed.
I mean, like I said, I don't know that a Canada Day speech is necessarily the place for that. I agree with what you're saying, and just
But
as regular every
it
day.
would be the actual perfect time to speak to Canadians about Canadian problems and promise. How hard would it have been for him to promise to make it better? You know, this is not the Canada most of you grew up in. I get it. This is why I'm so grateful for Damien Carrick to give me the opportunity to become the
I would
conservative
have liked
leader once again. I failed you guys during the election, but no more. I'm done. I want Canada to become great again. And this is where we start. What is it? August 18th is where the race starts again. And I promise you, my fellow conservative, this Canada is about to be something else than great, because goddamn, they would crucify him for being Trumpist. But let's make Canada Canada again. See, there you go. That's a free slogan for you, Mr. Poliev. Let's make Canada Canada again. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, and yeah, I think we can sit here and talk about all the things that he should have said, but just based on the things he did say, I thought it was an okay speech. I thought he did fine.
But that's the definition of Pierre Poliev. And that is the biggest problem that he has. He's
just
like,
fine.
Awesome. You're like, you know, he's the drink that somebody buys you that you wouldn't pay for. Well, since I didn't pay for it, it's
I'll
fine.
drink it, but I wouldn't pay for
Maybe
it.
there's drugs into it. Maybe I'm gonna wake up with an anus hurting tomorrow, but I wouldn't buy it.
All right, we'll take a couple of these comments here because there's actually quite a few good ones in here. Wise guy says the biggest challenge is to take money out of politics somehow, some way. I mean, sure. I mean, it's funny because that's one of those solutions that pretty much everyone agrees on, and yet how do we do it?
Nobody
I don't
wants
know.
to change.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you'd have to get the people in politics to actually change it because they're the ones voting on the laws, and you're essentially asking them to change the system that works beautifully for them. You got to understand, like when we talk about a broken system, that's from our perspective. If you're a perspective of a career politician, the system works like, you could not have designed a better system to this is working like chef's kiss there.
You know, in Joe Rogan said years ago, and we talked about this earlier, but there is I believe in mind expanding drugs, or I shouldn't call them drugs, mind expanding substances like ayahuasca, like DMT, like psilocybin. I've experimented with that my whole life, and there's tremendous value in those type of substances. And Joe Rogan said years and years, and anybody that's done it will agree with this, but Joe Rogan said years ago that anybody that wants to be in politics should have to do like a ayahuasca retreat or the Amazon, two times a day for a week straight. We'll talk when you get back. And I'm like, bro, I fucking love the idea. It will never happen, but I love the idea, because you cannot do those substances time and time again and not see major flaws in yourself. Yeah, let's just call it.
Yeah, I mean, that's it'll never happen because you can't force people to do drugs, of course. But I like the idea. I like the theory behind it, and I think it actually would make a difference. Angry Beaver,
I love the idea.
Says Canada. Oh, so this is reference to the fourth turning talk we had a little bit ago, where he said we're currently in the soft times stage, and theoretically, this is a time that breeds the hard men. Or sorry, bad times breed hard men. Angry Beaver says, Canada breeding hard men. The hard men are all fighting mental illnesses because they are told they are toxic and bad for withholding true ideals. Canada has been beating down real men. And I agree with this. And I think Nico agrees with this. This whole discourse around toxic masculinity is a huge problem. That's not really a Canada thing. That's a virus that has infected all of the West. Certainly it's gotten a strong hold in Canada, but this is the woke mind virus, for lack of a better term. And it is, to answer my own question from before, when I said, what do you guys think is some of the main problems? To me, it's this. If we could just eradicate what we call the woke mind virus from society, I think a lot of sanity would return to politics and the culture, and many of these problems would heal themselves. Like nature would start to heal.
Not enough.
Wrong. Yeah, but and that's fair. I mean, it's an opinion show, and this is my opinion. I'm not saying this is definitely the solution, but yeah. Joe Stradamus, this is where we all meet in the middle. No matter what size of the Overton window we're coming from, the fundamental evil in Western government is money dictating policy. I actually agree with that. I think I think that's the choke point. If you could fix one thing in politics, rather than attack any issue, you'd attack that. Get money out of politics if you could. And I think a lot of the other problems will fix themselves. The issue is lots of people with money have a vested interest in us fighting each other, hating each other. And so they fund these culture wars. You know, that meme, that picture of the blue hair, they, them fighting with the MAGA hat guy while the Monopoly guy is picking money out of their back pockets. I think that's probably a pretty accurate representation of a lot of the problems. And, you know, a lot of what we think of our organic culture wars is actually artificially created by moneyed interest and the elites in society to keep us fighting each other, to keep us, at each other's throats, feeling like we're each other's enemy. And that's one of the main sort of points of this show is to, I'm a liberal, Nico's a conservative, is to show a different way to have a discourse, that we don't need to hate each other. And to the extent that there's a secret sauce for this show, I think that is it.
I disagree. I do
of course
not.
You do.
Money
is, of course,
but money's not the problem. Money again is just a symptom. It's values that are our problem. We have people that are in power with really, really distorted values. And our value system is not in the right place. It's not where it should be. We don't have any morals anymore, because I don't care how much money you give me. I will not do something that goes against my moral, because I believe that there's something after death, and there's something I will pay the consequences later. There's a price for every single action if you base those on strong morals and values. Now, that's doesn't need to be religion, but it needs to be rooted in something that is greater than you. Call it whatever the fuck you want. But if you put other people before yourself in your decision making process, you actually think about how it will impact others, have compassion for other people, try to put yourself in their place before you do anything, and see if the roles were reversed, how would it be? Mm-hmm. That would change everything. But it's just that people don't care. In the same way as I was talking about the boomers earlier, they know that it's going on. They just don't give a fuck, because at the end of the day, it doesn't impact them. There's no compassion. That's the problem. We have narcissists in power, and all they care about is themselves and money, and they want more power. So, of course, it makes it extremely easy for people with a lot of power, a lot of money, to buy them, because they're for sale. Because their morals are crooked, and their morals, they just care about themselves. That's our real problem. It's the lack of accountability and the fact that we don't have any morals. That's the problem.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's certainly a complex issue. I think to a certain extent, we can't immediately change the morals of the society or the culture, but we can change things like how we allow money to be involved in politics. I guess that's the reason I'm taking that angle about it. Sylvie says, "Hi guys, just in time for a Polyev rant. I see."
Hey, yes. Don't fucking start! Don't fucking start, you.
So Sylvie knew she was like, "Oh, my Polyev rant. My spidey senses tingling. Someone's talking shit about Polyev. I gotta go." Sylvie loves those rants.
Yep. She probably does.
So regarding your Polyev rant, let me see here. Squirrel Nuts thinks that you're being a bit harsh on there it is. I think you're being a bit harsh, Nico. He says division is strong amongst all when given the chance, and it's time to get behind something to someone. On the other hand, Pam here. She had a supportive comment.
But
Nico,
hold
Nico
on,
has
hold on, before hold on.
Nico
No,
has
no,
many
but go
good
back to
points.
what he was saying. To what Squirrel Nuts
He
is
just
saying.
thinks you're being. He just thinks you're being harsh.
Yeah, but if you continue, he's saying it's time to
Get behind someone or something.
Okay, sure. You know what? I agree with you. It's time to get behind someone or something. But let's be honest, Squirrel Nut. I'm talking to you directly. Let's be honest here. Is Pierre Poliev the guy that you would want as your general for a war? Would you follow that guy in a life and death situation? Would you follow that guy? One of my buddies years ago told me something that sounds stupid when you say it out loud, but when you actually think about it, it makes a lot of sense. He told me that everybody around him, he asks himself first, would they be part of my apocalypse team? Would they be part of my zombie apocalypse team? If shit hits the fan, are those the guys that I will either lead or be led by? Do they bring something to the table that will help me survive? And I look at a guy like Pierre Poliev, he's not that dude. You know what? You might think that he is, or you might just be saying that because you need something different than what's there right now. But that's why we are here today, is because we keep on voting for the lesser of two evils, to say, just like you did, right? Just to say, the liberals don't deserve my vote, which is awesome, because that's your right as a voter to say you don't deserve it. I'm going to vote for somebody else. But at the same time, that's why I didn't vote for Pierre Poliev, because he didn't deserve my vote by default because he's a conservative. So that's my point. As much as I understand what you're saying, Squirrel Nuts, I get it. But can you truthfully tell me that you believe that Pierre Poliev is the strong leader that conservatives need, considering that we have lost 4 elections in a row? Is that the guy you would follow into battle if shit hit the fan tomorrow? That's the question you should ask yourself, because that's a question I ask myself.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying. I think, I don't know, like if I were to critique your political sort of theories or I would say you're a good example of the saying, "Don't let perfect be the enemy of the good." I'm
not asking for perfect, believe me. I'm just asking with somebody with balls.
I mean, I can understand the desire to I definitely understand the argument. It seems to me like that there's 2 main camps when it comes to this debate. Is on the one hand, it's someone has to earn my vote. I'm not going to vote for somebody unless they have earned my vote, and that thing. And then there's the others who do say it's more of a lesser of sure. 2 evils. And I can honestly see the argument for both. I think I think you can make a strong case for either side as far as politics goes. But I mean, clearly you're on the side of they got to earn my vote. And that's not, I don't think it's one of those things where I don't think either side could say they are wrong. It's often it's just a personal thing. But I think that, it's if you're only waiting for the perfect, and I know you say that you're not looking for perfection, but I'm
looking for conservative. No,
yeah.
You're laughing, and it's kind of condescending the way you do it.
It's not condescending at
but
all.
I'm not asking I am not asking for anybody perfect. I'm not perfect, so I can't ask for somebody perfect. All I'm asking is for somebody that has the balls to stand up for Canadians when it matters. He's had all the chances in the fucking world to do so, and he never has. I'm not asking for somebody perfect, because if you dig deep enough, you will always find skeleton in somebody's closet. You will always find flaws, because there was one single perfect man, and he died 2,000 years ago, and he wasn't even fucking human. So we cannot compete. We can't. But at the same time, I ask for courage. First and foremost, a man, if there's one quality that a man needs to have, is courage, especially if you're going to be a leader. I need to know that when shit hits the fan, because it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when shit hits the fan as a leader. I need to make sure that you're going to take the right decisions. You're going to do what's right. And he's proven time and time again that he won't. That's the problem I have with Pierre Poliev. Fuck the fact that he looks like Milhouse. Fuck the fact that he's a lifelong politician. Fuck the fact that I don't like him as a person. I don't like his personality. He's not authentic. At least if he had balls, I would respect him. And I don't respect any man that doesn't have balls. I do not surround myself by men that I cannot count on. If shit hits the fan, I want to have people that will be there to do the right thing, because it takes courage to do the right thing. And he is not that man. He showed it time and time again, and I can't condone that. That's my, if there's one issue I need to address with him, it's that, his lack of courage. That's it. That's it. All the rest I could forgive.
So
but that I can't.
Just play devil's advocate a bit. Do you believe that it's no, like, do you think it would be better if Polyev were prime minister than Carney? Or do you think it's kind of like
I said before, Pierre Polyev is still a globalist. At the end of the day, he still believes in NATO. He still believes in the high amount of immigration. He still was part of the WEF. You can still find his name on their fucking website. So he is still a believer in globalism to a certain extent. So to me, is he better? Sure. I said that before during the election. I see Pierre Polyev, he's never going to move the needle, but he might have prevented it from getting worse. That's where I see. And again, if you allow me to choose between the lesser of two evil, he would have definitely been the lesser of two evil, no questions about it. But I'm tired that every single time I vote is for the lesser of two evils. I'd rather not vote than waste my vote on somebody. At least by me not voting, I take a choice to say you don't deserve my vote, and it's plain and simple. And I have no problem with people voting for him. I have no problems with people voting for Carney. That's their choice. They're allowed to vote. If we assume that our system works, that's how this is how it should work. You should be allowed to vote for anybody that you want. You have free speech. I believe in free speech first and foremost. So whatever. But as a personal individual, as me, I cannot condone somebody that lacks courage. That's my number one thing I look for in a leader, and he doesn't have it. It's really, really that simple. If you break it down to the smallest denominator, courage to me is everything. Everything I've gained in my life was through courage and faith. You know how many times have I asked pastors, what comes first, courage or faith? And to this day, I still struggle. I don't know, because in order to have faith, you need to be courageous. But you need courage to have faith. So, it's one of those things that I don't know. So I call it courage. This is the number one thing, and I don't see it in him. I don't think anyone would disagree with what you're saying, that I think anyone who's not a retard wants courage in a leader. They understand that's a major aspect of leadership. And I think we can all agree Polyev doesn't really have it, certainly not political courage. And I guess I'll just continue with the devil's advocate line of questioning here. If we're faced with a situation where neither of them have courage, you're just going to say, fuck it? I have to have courage and not condone them.
Yeah. Okay.
I have, because at the end of the day, this is the thing, right? I make my content for conservatives. My content is for common sense individual. Let me rephrase that. But most of the people that I know that are common sense are more conservative than they are progressives, right? I get hated every fucking day by conservatives because I call out conservatives. So at the end of the day, if I did not have courage every day to post what I post and continue speaking about what I speak about, knowing that both the left and the supposed right don't like me, I wouldn't be doing what I do every day. Why is it that I'm capable of doing that? And it costs me everything. That has cost me my courage has cost me my career, cost me my house, cost me my investment, cost me everything. I went from making a boatload of money to making zero and losing everything. Why is it that as just a regular guy, I'm just an average dude that likes to do research, that turns out that it's pretty good in front of a camera? That's all I am at the end of the day. But I have courage. If there's one thing that the past 5 years has taught me, is I have bigger balls than anybody that I know. Because no matter what, I will look up and say, you know what? I have faith that this is the right thing to do, because this is what I knew I had to do. Yeah. It just blows my mind that you have a guy like Pierre Polyev that has all the chances in the world to become, he lost that election. Nobody took it away from him. He
Yeah.
lost that election. And let's agree here. And for anybody listening to this, tell me I'm wrong or give me your opinion at least. Can you imagine if Pierre Poilievre would have had the balls to just say what needed to be said on immigration, on women and men and women's sports? Just tiny little.
I think he would have won. I think he would have won.
Oh, 100%. So what did he lose on? The lack of courage, his lack of balls. That's what done it. It's plain and simple.
He had like, just to make a comment on his strategy, he violated like a core basic principle is if something's not working, you fucking change it. He clearly, like, he never changed. What he was doing was cruising, and when he was up by 20 points in the polls, sure, okay, go the safe route. Once that changed, you have to adjust with the changing situation, changing facts on the ground, and he never did. I completely agree. That was a winnable election, despite all the shenanigans, despite the sort of unfair tying him to, elbows like to Trump and elbows up, blah blah blah. He lost that election. He could have won that.
And for the people that don't agree with what you just said, which I'm not one of them, I completely agree with you. Just look to the South. Just look how. Did you notice how our elections were so similar from the last election in Canada and the last election in the US?
Yep.
The main right person, the person that's on the right, got their candidate on the left changed last minute. Same thing happened in the US. We can argue how it was orchestrated, but the same thing happened. Pierre Poilievre ran for years on defeating Justin Trudeau, and if they would have went head to head, he would have decimated him.
Yep.
Trump ran a campaign against Joe Biden, and he would have decimated him. The numbers were so close. If you look at the numbers, they were extremely close. They're pretty much identical. Mm-hmm. How Pierre Poilievre was beating Justin Trudeau and how Trump was beating Joe Biden. What's the difference between the two?
He adjusted
What did he do? He made sure to make more appearance in front of the younger votes to make sure that they heard his message, because he knew that mainstream media would not portray him the way he wants to be portrayed. Pierre Poilievre had the same opportunity to do the same thing. We talked about this so much during the election. One adapted, the other one didn't. Love Trump, hate him. You cannot debate the fact that he won. And he changed. And the reason he won is because he changed. He adapted. He, as we say in fighting, he rolled with the punches. And this goes back to why I dislike Pierre Poilievre, is because of his lack of courage. And he does not roll with the punches. You can cry for all the injustice that happened to him during the election, and I'll be the first one to tell you that it's not fair. But since when is life fair? As a leader, you're going to be facing with situations that you don't deserve, and you're not judged on how you handled the easy situation when it went your way. No, you're always going to be judged on how you reacted to something that nobody predicted. It just fucking happened, and you have to deal with this shit. That is what being a leader is. But how can you be expected to deal with something the right way if you don't have the courage to stand up and say, nope, no, fuck no, stop. This is not how it's going to work. This is what we're going to have to do, because this is what the right thing to do is. That's it.
Yeah, I'm as you were saying that, I'm reminded of the movie The Rock, the great line from Sean Connery when he said, "Losers complain about life not being fair. Winners go and fuck the prom queen."
Prom king? Jesus. Whatever. I don't remember Sean Connery being a homo.
I was like, God damn, that's a bad fucking Freudian slip there.
You know what? I do agree that Sean Connery is very dreamy. You know what? I'll give it. Hello.
Winners go fuck the prom king. That's the worst typo. Losers complain about life not being fair. Winners go and fuck the prom king. Winners get fucked by the
that is-
prom king. You sure? You sure, man?
Wow, that was good. Good for you, bro. That was.
Shit.
Oh, this is a moment that will live on forever.
Yeah, live in infamy.
Great.
Guys, we are, of course,
Hold
talking.
on. 134. I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah, write that down. Guys, we are, of course, talking about Canada Day. It's a special Relax Canada episode where we're just kind of talking about what it means to be Canadian, what some of the problems are facing the country, and what we can do to change it. And of course, fucking prom kings. It's just one of those shows.
So making a reel with this.
A reel of that, of course you are.
Oh,
of course
fuck
you are.
yeah.
Of course you are. And of course, that's why this show's great, because you never know what you're going to hear. We're always going to stop like. As Angry Beaver says, though, only 12 in chat. Why only 10 likes? Stop slacking, chat, guys. If you do like the show, remember to like and share the stream, subscribe to the channel, and if you really want to support us, as Wise Guy did already earlier today, you can become a member for the low price of $2.99, and that allows you to support independent media and help us build this community here, because we believe that we're doing something important here. We're creating a space where people from all over the spectrum can actually have productive debates about the problems facing society, and keep it respectful. We're not attacking people. We've got liberals here, we've got conservatives here, and we're all just trying to get it right. We're all trying to get the truth, and that's what this show does great. So if you do want to support the show, that's the best way you can do it. With that said, should we get a few more of the comments here?
That's what the show today is all about.
Yeah.
I don't have anything to share, man. Except
No.
opinion.
Yeah, and just fucking prom kings and stuff like that.
That is gonna make for a great reel.
Yeah. Pam says, okay, so she says, I've seen Polyev in person. He is a socialist. I don't know. That's I'm not even gonna say I'll disagree, but I would like to hear your arguments. Pam, I'd like to hear what you have to say. I'm open to it. I'm open to being convinced. I would not say that I think he's a socialist. I definitely don't think he's like a firm conservative or anything. She says, in my experience with Polyev, Nico is bang on about him. I mean, you've seen him. I've never seen him or met him in real life. And with regards to everything Nico's saying about his character and lack of courage, I agree with that. I see that as well. The only part we were kind of, having a debate there is how important should that be in your vote? Of course, it's got to be important, but should perfect be the enemy of good, to use a saying?
It's pretty sad if courage is considered perfect, because that's the base.
I agree with you. I agree. Yeah, I agree with you. I can't disagree with anything you said there. So we'll go back to a little. Go ahead.
Hold on. Squirrel saying, call Pierre and tell him, I wish he had the balls to call me. I wish. If he gave me his number right now, I'd fucking hang up this show and go talk to him right now. I would, because I would, but he doesn't have the balls to do it. I know that I know of two people, at least, if not three, that he's called personally without any notice. They just called. I know one of them shared his experience with us here, and he got to speak to him. But I also think that we're too forgiving for Pierre Polyev. Pierre Polyev does not surround himself. And now this is my opinion. I have no proof of what I'm going to say outside of what I see. He does not surround himself with people that are going to criticize him.
Yep.
You need an asshole around you. My best friend is 70 years old. He's a guy that was dirt fucking poor, that is now worth tens of millions of dollars. That guy is a harsh critique of mine. If I need an opinion on something, I pick up the phone and I call this guy. I explain the situation, and you know what? He will destroy me right then and there, and that's what I expect of him. He is, and I do the same thing for him. If he has questions, he needs my opinion, I will rip into him if it calls for it. Like, obviously, we don't just rip into each other for no fucking reason. But the point is that you need to have people around you that will call your bullshit. No matter how you feel about it, it's irrelevant.
No,
but I
no,
don't
no, no.
see Pierre Poliev being surrounded by those type of people because he keeps on making the same mistakes. Like he hasn't. I have not seen a difference between him pre-election, during the election, and after the election. I don't see any fucking difference outside of him making more videos now, reaching out to people. But he's reaching out to people that already likes him, that already voted for him. Those are not the people he should be talking to. He should be talking to people like me that are not afraid to fucking call him out on what he's doing wrong. But that says a lot, and I'm not expecting him to do it, and I'm not saying he should talk to me, but he should talk to people like me that will not be afraid to tell him what he needs to do to his face. And man, Squirrel, I wish he had the balls to say, because I would call him out on his bullshit. I would be polite. I don't need to swear at him, but I could give him a fucking game plan as to, can you do this? No, you're not the right guy, bro. Just leave. Stop. You have your pension already. Just disappeared. Do like politicians do now. Start your podcast and start a clothing line that people can buy, and that's it. Bye-bye. You don't need to work anymore. You're making enough money. You don't need to work anymore, bro.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Just leave the place to somebody that will actually want to change this, that will actually be a real conservative and stand for somebody. If that's not you, if you don't see it in yourself, and clearly you haven't shown it, just move, bro. There's other people. I'm sure there's many others like me out there that would want to go in politics and do that shit. So move aside.
well, yeah, and that's a sign of a high character person, is someone who willingly surrounds himself with people who will criticize them and tell them what they're doing wrong, right? Because I think that's an essential leadership quality, especially if you have a lot of power. You need people around you to keep you in check, keep your head on straight, keep things in perspective. And it's a major character flaw if you don't want to be surrounded, or at least have one person who will, someone you trust, of course. But I think, I agree with that. Jostradamus, interesting comment here. One day I would love to see an Orphans podcast in which we discuss what we understand to be left and right, because depending on who is speaking, the definitions are all over the map. Good comment. And we can even, briefly, we've got 20 minutes as we go through the comments. Perhaps, you guys can throw that out there, because, one of the things that we say a lot here is, I identify, or I think of myself as a left, on a liberal. Nico
as a guy that would fuck the prom king.
A prom king, yeah.
No, you identify as the guy that will fuck the prom king.
Yeah, that's right. For fuck's sakes. But we'll all, we'll regularly say that the labels don't necessarily, they're not as clean as they might have been 20, 30 years ago. We use them because they still have some value. They still allow you to roughly describe what your takes are. But you're right. You really need to sit down and talk about it issue by issue. Because there's a lot of things that I believe that will not put me on the left side. And, even you, Joe, you're quite far left in some of your positions, and yet some of your positions, you'll say things that you would not typically think as someone on the left to say. I even just in this chat like an hour ago, where we were talking about the French solution, Joe was like, I've always favored the French solution. That's not something you would typically expect a bleeding heart liberal to say. Of course, French solution, we were talking about what happened to King Louis. When the
invention of the guillotine. Let's just put those.
We'll leave it at
those
that.
Two things together, and you should get the picture.
Yeah, and I've even mentioned like horseshoe theory and Joe, because some of your positions seem quite like they could be far right. I don't think, like, certainly on this show especially, we're not going to drill down, and I think that's a good thing. I think that's a sign of what we want this show to be about, because if you can slot yourself into every single position that a liberal believes, and so I'm liberal, so I believe everything, or on the right, I'm a conservative, and here's what conservatives believe, so I believe every single thing there, then you're just really, you're just a typical sort of tribalist political animal, and you wouldn't really fit on this show in this community. Like, that's not, if everything you believe is like lockstep in keeping with what your side is, then this show is not really going to be for you, this community, you know, the political orphans. Probably the best label that fits is exactly that, political orphans. That's really what we all are.
Common sense.
Yeah, common sense, political orphans, and we have a lot of overlap in our beliefs. There are some things that we're going to not agree on, of course. But I would say, yeah, if we had to use a label, probably orphans is the best one to apply to us. But I don't know. What do you guys think? If like Joe, what's you specifically? You know, my perception of you is that you're pretty far left on some issues. Is that how you see yourself? Would you describe yourself as that? How would you describe yourself politically?
All I would say about Joe is that at least he's capable of having conversations with somebody he disagrees with.
And that's all. That's all we ask for on this show.
I really don't give a fuck where you sit politically. If you're capable of sitting down with people you disagree with and have civil conversations, like, does it mean it won't get heated? No.
Yep.
And you know, some of the conversations I've had with Joe, I was heated, maybe more than I should be, but at the same time, it never comes from a bad place. And Joe shows it time and time again as well. So I don't really care. I just use the left and right just to kind of describe something, to put it into terms that people understand.
Yeah.
I think most people understand the concept of the left and right, but I don't consider myself really a righty. I consider myself a conservative, but by the real standards, not by the political party, obviously.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, man, I'm able to have a civil conversation with people I completely disagree, and it's still gonna be polite. Now, I might walk away at one point because it's not fucking worth my time anymore, but I will always be ready to have those conversations, and I think this is what is so important about what we do. I'm a bit biased, obviously, but to be able to have that conversation no matter where you sit.
Yeah, I think, you know, I think the labels are useful if we're trying to do a brief 5 or 10 second soundbite when we say the show is a liberal and a conservative talking about the issues today. But I think you really need to watch the show and actually listen to all the positions in order to really understand what we mean by that. Because I don't think either of us slot perfectly into those labels. And frankly, I don't think too many people in the comments or that are regular followers here or listeners also probably don't necessarily slot perfectly into any of those labels as well. And again, I think that's the strength. I think that's a feature, not a bug of this show. I think it's one of the great things about it is we can, and we can, as you said, the only real requirement to sort of fit in around here is to be able to have a civil discussion with people you don't agree with. That's really it. And as you know, we all believe things strongly, and sometimes things do get heated. But one thing I do like about it here is at the end of it, you know, everyone does seem to all get along and recognize that, like, the value and the productivity of the debate, whether we come to a you know, find common ground or not. So Joe,
going on, Jason?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
What's going on, Jason?
Jason, what's up, brother? Nico is right. Assholes around us all the time. It's necessary. It's important. It's important for personal growth. It's important to keep you. I would clarify assholes who care about you, assholes who want you to succeed, assholes who have your interests at heart. Is the recipe for success in that situation. So Joe says, regarding what we were just talking about, I bring it up because a lot of the things you blame on the far left are not really leftist policies at all. They're bastardized and twisted and manufactured. They're the reasons why we're here. Yeah, I mean, okay. When I do, sometimes it's just for the sake of, you know, brevity or to keep the conversation. But I just mean, like, as I see it. But I'd have to know specifically what you mean, like, in order to respond properly. Like, what specific policy are you referring to? Jason says, actually, I'll take his first comment here and then go into that. He says, I don't think any decent human being is completely one or the other. Tribalism is the enemy of healthy dialogue, as well as these lazy, stupid labels. Yeah, I mean, I think that's perfectly correct. I think, again, we use them because in brief sound bites, it's useful to give you a broad idea of where we stand. But if you really want to know kind of where we stand and where you and our audience stand, I think you have to stick around and actually get involved in the conversations here. He continues, I think it's about respect. Look at Joe Rogan. The right loves him. And he supports same-sex marriage, a woman's right to her body, universal universal basic income, social safety nets. That's a good point. That's a great point. And I think that shows one of the fundamental differences between the right and the left right now. The left cannot, they're ideologically incapable of liking someone that does not believe the same things as them. You're not just wrong, you're a bad person on the left. And, that's one of the things that has really turned me off on the left lately in the past couple of years. The right, for all their flaws, that doesn't seem to be one of them. Joe Rogan, because the right does love him. And so much so that most people think that Rogan is a conservative or on the right. But as you say,
He definitely is not.
Yeah, no, you said it before. And it's a good point, because it's one of those things that, like, when you bring it up, most people be like, you know what, you're actually right. Because that is definitely his people think he's on the right, but they only think that because the left hates him. But the left only hates him because even though he agrees with 80% of them, their policies, he doesn't agree with 100%, right? That 20% is enough for them to hate him. But if you look at all his policies, as you say, he's far more aligned
Somewhere in the middle.
with the left. Yeah.
He's somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I agree.
I've listened to a lot of his stuff, and just the fact that he'll have people from Joe Rogan, from Donald Trump to Bernie Sanders. He just had Bernie Sanders like last week on his show.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
And Bernie Sanders
he was a huge Bernie bro, right? That was his.
Yep,
that was.
But he openly admitted to voted for Trump on the last election.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, to me, like Joe Rogan or not, he's pretty common sense when it comes to. There's stuff I agree with. There's stuff I completely disagree with. But at the end of the day, one thing you cannot take away from him is that he will have those conversations with people that fundamentally he disagrees with. He is open to having those conversations that others will not touch with a 10-foot pole. He's not worried by the consequences of his words, and he's not worried about what it means to have. The fact that he had Bernie Sanders on his show doesn't make him a leftist. The fact that he had Donald Trump on his show doesn't make him a rightist. It just makes him open to having conversations with people that he might agree or disagree with. But one thing you got to give him, he's been constant for a long time, as in he will talk to each side of the equation and see where the conversation goes. Again, love him or hate him, it's hard. You can't take that away from him. There's a reason why he's had the most popular, if not one of the most populars now. I don't know where his standing is anymore, but there's a good reason why because he's not a dumb guy. He's very researched. He's just a bro. He's just like me. He's a bro that's really researched. He swears. He says a lot of dumb shit, but he is not stupid, and he's open to the conversation. So as much as I don't listen to his podcast as much as I used to, I'll always respect what he does, because he will have those conversations with people from either side of the equation. He doesn't care.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Joe says, for me, left is almost always an economic position. Fair day's pay for a fair day's work, progressive taxation on unearned wealth, such as inheritance and capital gains. Also, extreme individual liberty, as far as that liberty does not harm others, especially in speech and faith and assembly. And I mean, that's not the left anymore. Again, Joe, I'm going to tell you, as a conservative, bro, you're living in the past. You're like the baby boomers that don't see a problem in Canada. You think that because you grew up with those values and you still have them today, that the average leftist still does, and they don't. Clearly, they don't. Those are not priorities anymore, because what you're saying right now sounds more like somebody in the middle today than somebody on the left. Because what's the number one thing a libertarian's going to tell you? My rights start where yours begins, or my rights stop where yours begin. That's pretty much what you're saying in different words. And this is no longer a leftist thinking, unfortunately. It should be. Free speech should be number one from the get-go, but clearly it's not a left value anymore. It used to be. No. Even in recent memory. It should be. Yeah. That's one thing that both sides, the three sides should agree with. The left, the right, and the middle. Free speech is everything. It should. If we could get that as an agreement between everybody to just say free speech is number one. Number one is free speech, then everything can be discussed afterwards.
Like it's really the basis for everything. And Joe, I think we well keep reading, bros, because motherfucker, you're sending 20 fucking text response. It's hard to watch them all. They get lost. But the point is, I think you believe the left is still what it used to be. In the same way as I would love to believe that the conservative used to be, the conservative of today are conservative, but they're not. They're really not.
No, and I actually I really like sort of these two comments. I feel like, you know, we're not going to have enough time because we're almost out, but like there's a lot of meat on this bone. And I agree with everything that you're saying here, but I do think, you know, I do think somewhere so he said, well, one I already read, but again, he says, for me, left is almost always an economic position, a fair day's pay for a fair day's work, progressive taxation on unearned wealth, such as inheritance and capital gains. Also, extreme individual liberty, as far as that liberty does not harm others, especially in speech and faith and assembly. Because I agree with you, like that's how I feel too. But I think somewhere along the line, recently, maybe 5-10 years, a lot of these things really did shift, at least towards the center. I would say, you know, the progressive taxation on unearned wealth, inheritance, capital gains, that's still firmly on the left. But everything else, fair day's pay for a fair day's work, you know, extreme individual liberty. As far as that liberty does not harm others, especially in speech and faith and assembly, those you're going to hear on the right just as much and probably more so than you hear on the left. And I think this exact comment is a good example of why what we were talking about a few minutes ago when we said, you know, the labels, we can use them to give a rough idea of our position, but the lines aren't clear anymore. The lines are blurred. Just things have shifted. You know, that's one of the reasons why I have always identified as a liberal or progressive. Like one of my core life values is essentially live and let live. I want to live my life how I want, as long as I'm not hurting anyone. And I want you to be able to do the same. And for most of my adult life, especially, you know, when I was younger, it was the right who was trying to tell everyone how to live. It was trying to tell people, you know, gay people, you can't get married. They were advocating for this. But somewhere along the line, and you know, these things happen. It's like the boiling frog analogy. It happens so slowly, like you don't always notice it. By the time you notice it, it's already happened. But I think the comment in itself just shows what a weird sort of fluid time we are in politically and culturally, because, you know, a lot of these things that we thought were left-wing values are not really anymore.
They're common sense. They should be common sense values that any side should agree on.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
Again, what I don't know why you asked me to continue reading, because I addressed your whole message. If that's all you wrote, it's just that the values you're describing are not leftist values anymore. They've become mostly right or somewhere in the middle, but they're not leftist. The left that is screaming the loudest right now does not want me to be sharing my opinion. They've censored me for 4 or 5 years now. And if they still had the power, they would still do it, because that's what they want. They don't believe in free speech. They believe in some free speech as long as you agree with their free speech. But to answer Angry Beaver, do I believe in absolute free speech? 100,000 million %, yes. You should be allowed to say whatever the fuck you want. Doesn't matter what you say. It could be the most racist or dumb shit ever. You should be allowed to say it. That doesn't mean I'm going to agree with it, but I want to know what you stand for.
And it doesn't mean there won't be consequences.
No, but I want people to be so comfortable saying everything that's on their mind that I can see the next Hitler rise. I can see. The only thing that happens when you censor speech is that you create underground movements, and those ones only get exposed when they're fucking popular. You don't get to see the rise of those populist movement if they're being censored, because they're done on underground behind closed doors. And by the time they get popular, it's too late. You can't fight them anymore because they're too big. You want to see those idiots coming. You want to see those guys coming, like Memdani in New York. I want him to be able to say all the dumb shit that he wants, all the good stuff that I want him to be able to say whatever the fuck he wants and feel that he has the freedom to say so. Because I want to know what he stands for. I want to know what he actually believes in the back of his mind. Like, you know, the things that you don't want to say out loud because, you know, that might cost me points. I'm just going to shut the fuck up. No. I want him to be so comfortable to say everything that he needs to say. Everything. I want to see him coming.
Do you want to stick around for like 10 or 15 more minutes? Because there's a couple. We'll take just the ones that have been asked, but I feel like there's a pretty good discussion here.
We should start. We should be better, bro. 2:00. We should really stick to it. 1:59. I don't like doing it, man, but we have to be able to condense ourselves.
Because mostly I wanted to see. So Angry Beaver says, so if I post nuclear schematics online that shows a layman how to make one, do you think that should be stopped? I'm curious how you feel about that too.
That's a moral problem. Once again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. We don't have.
So you think that should be okay?
Why not?
I don't agree with that. I think. I mean,
brother, right now you can pretty much find whatever the fuck you want online to create bombs. We're so fucking lazy that people are not creating bombs, either because they're lazy or because they do not have the intent to create bombs to use them. So people don't look at the data. The information to create, every single time I've seen school shooters, it's sad, but I'm kind of laughing behind because I'm like, you guys are so stupid. You guys are using fucking guns when you can blow shit up instead. The information is out there. You can find it. Yet they don't. So again,
I mean,
people, there's really messed up information out there already. You choose to use it or not. But at the end of the day, it's the moral aspect, like I said earlier, that's everything. If people have great morals, the information can be out there and they're not going to use it for bad ends.
Okay,
you
well, I mean,
stop...
you call me naive, but come on, man. Like,
but it's not naive. The information is out there right now to create bombs. You can put all the nuclear first. You're not able to create a nuclear bomb at home. Like, let's be honest here. I know that the example you're using is an extreme one, but there's already stuff out there that people could use to unalive a shit ton of people if they wanted to. It's already out there. It's already there. And a lot of those stuff can be used at a home. And I've played around with those things when I was younger. There's stuff just for shits and giggles. If you somewhat have a research, you like to do research, you can find that information. It's out there, man. It's out there.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I don't believe in censorship at all. I just don't. I really, really don't. I believe in holding people accountable for their actions. Like you said, free speech doesn't mean that there's not going to be consequences to your action. It just means that you have the right to say it. Now, if you say something so dumb that nobody wants to hire you anymore, well, guess what, bro? It's a double-edged sword. There's two sides to every story, and guess what? There's consequences, but nobody should be prevented from saying what they want to say. Deal with the consequences of what your speech can bring.
So like obviously this show is a cornerstone of, like, we believe, both of us believe, that free speech is a cornerstone of civilized society. But I would not say that I believe in absolute the way that you do. I don't think that, even if the knowledge is out there.
But that's what free speech is. Free speech is an absolute. You either have it or you don't. There's no gray area in free speech. You have free speech.
I think you can make an exception for.
So it's not free speech. So you don't believe in free speech. You believe in some free speech, but that's what it is, bro. It's not a debate here. The definition is either you can say whatever the fuck you want. The government cannot stop you from saying whatever the fuck you want, because in the state, that's what free speech is. It's just about the government, right? The government cannot stop you from saying anything.
What you're saying here is the equivalent of saying, I believe in freedom, and someone's saying, okay, well, do you think it should be illegal to murder someone? And if they say no, then you say, well, you don't believe in freedom then. Like, you use an extreme example. Like, I think it should be illegal to murder people, and I think you should not be allowed to post the schematics for nuclear weapons online. I just think, that's just how I feel. Like, I think most people would agree with that. But
it always comes down to who gets to take the decision or to make the decision as to what is acceptable and what isn't. I don't trust the people that take those decisions. I just don't. So I would rather build a society of people that have strong morals, like in some generations, years and years ago, people did have. Unfortunately, it's a pendulum. The 80-year cycle, the fourth turning cycle, is something that we've been dealing with for thousands of years, as per their research, as per Strauss. They're able to track down through human history. It keeps on happening. That's just human nature. That's going to continue to happen, and I'm not naive to think that it's not going to continue. We're never going to fucking stop that cycle. I believe that's just the way we are. But at the end of the day, if there's one thing I believe in is free speech. That's my ultimate one. That is the only thing that cannot be. There's no restrictions that can be put on it. Agree with it or not, it's fine.
No, I mean it's certainly a valid take. We don't agree 100% on that issue. Sylvie says, "Come on, Rob, you just said you'd get fucked by the prom queen in that free speech." To be clear, I said I would fuck the prom king. I wouldn't get fucked by him. But also
it depends.
That was also
it depends who the prom king is.
No. I mean, it was also a misspeaking. It was supposed to be prom queen. It was from The Rock. It was an unfortunate misspeak, though, for sure. I'm sure I'll never live that one down.
No, I don't have a good memory, so I'll forget. I'll make it real, though.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure Sylvie's got a great memory. She'll keep reminding us. Peter Knopfler says, speaking your mind in Canada is not acceptable at all. Canada living in the shadow of the beast. Soon the arrogance of ignorance becomes the ignorance of arrogance. Copycat Beautiful. Canada triple C. Yeah, it's good. It's a good comment. And I think like one thing that we are on the show are really going to keep our eyes out for is there going to be another Bill C-63 that gets brought up? I suspect there probably will be, but we'll be all over if it does, which is of course the hate speech bill. I think those hate speech bills, they're getting passed all over the West now or trying to. I think those are like a serious problem. And like in that regard, as far as that goes with free speech, me and you are 100% on board with that one. But yeah, what do you think? We'll put a pin in there now. You want to? Should have
put a pin in it 6 minutes. 6 minutes ago.
Yeah, I know. But it is, it's Canada Day. It's Canada Day. We got to give the fans what they want.
Jesus.
Jason.
Shower me with flowers and kisses. Yeah. Come on.
Jason says 20 years ago, free speech is what allowed the left and right to argue and still have a drink at the bar afterwards. That's gone because It's about winning and losing. Started with Romney, then Trump. Yeah, that's a good point too.
My buddy's a big fan of what's the European sports where they play similar to football except they're not pussies, they play with no equipment?
Rugby.
Rugby. And that is something that I've seen all over the place, and rugby players will actually play a game, one will win, and whoever wins buys the losers beer. This to me is a mentality I absolutely love, in the same way as in the fighting game is the same thing. I have had conversations with people that beat me in the ring. I've had conversations with people I beat in the ring. It's not because we had to have a disagreement to a point where I actually fucking hurt you that we don't get to have a civil conversation afterwards. One doesn't prevent the other. So if you can see that in sports where the guys are competing, trying to physically hurt each other, it's not even words anymore. Rugby guys, if they can snap your legs off, guess what? Those motherfuckers are trying. Same thing in fighting. If I can fucking knock your ass out into the second row, I'm gonna fucking do it. But that doesn't mean I can't have a conversation afterwards with you because we agreed on. So at the end of the day, man, I agree with Jason that we need to be able to have those conversations, and without free speech, it's not possible.
And so Epiphany Jane adds a quick, and actually I just want to say a quick thank you to Angry Beaver. A little tip there for extending the show for a few minutes. Appreciate that.
He asked for how much for an hour?
Jesus. Yeah, $2 I'm gonna cut it, but it'll buy another 2 minutes. Epiphany Jane says, free speech absolutist. I also believe you could be sued for certain damages. I assume you mean I believe you should, or there should be the possibility that you can be sued for certain damages due to what you may say in public, like yelling fire in a movie theater when there isn't, and you disrupt someone's business. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. And of course, the yelling fire in the theater is the classic example of people use to when they will say that free speech does have limits. And then, I would even agree with that. I think that's like, that is, you should be allowed to say that. And when we say you can't do it, what we mean is you can't be criminally charged for what you say. Now, that doesn't mean you couldn't be sued, for example, for damages.
But that is not what free speech means. Free speech just means that you're capable of saying it. There could be consequences to it. If you're yelling fire for shits and giggles in a theater and somebody ends up getting trampled to death because of what you said, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't face consequences. I'm just saying that you should be allowed to scream it, to scream fire if you want to. That doesn't mean you shouldn't pay a consequence if there's something that happens because of what you said. That's the point. Like, there's a very big difference between free speech and no consequence. I'm an accountability absolutist. Outside of free speech, if there's one thing I believe in, is accountability. If you've done something where there's been consequences and you should pay for what you've done, brother, I'll be the first one to say that you need accountability for your actions. And you can yell fire all you want. But if something happens and, there's always consequences to your actions. Always, always. Free speech doesn't prevent that. It just makes sure that you can say it.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing that gets lost is people think that, like, if someone believes in free speech, it means that they think you should be able to do whatever you want, say whatever you want, no consequences. Of course, that's there might be some people who believe that, but I don't think there's many people. Even most absolutists will say there still is going to be consequences for your speech. Vice versa, if I'm going out in public and yelling N-words all over, my boss might not want to hire, might have a problem with that. Or vice versa. If I'm the boss and one of my employees does that, I might think this guy is not going to be good for business. Therefore, I'm going to fire him. And that's perfectly fine too. What we're talking
there
about
might be a big black guy there that don't fucking like you calling him that word. And he knocks the shit out of you. And you know what?
That's fine.
You had the right to say it. But he also had the right to kick your ass afterwards as a consequence. That's free speech for you.
Yeah.
And Jason, stop lying. Oh man, I got to get my wallet. Another hour will be expensive. You mean you have to go check for money in your wife's purse? Stop lying. Stop lying, Jason. We know what it means.
That Harvard educated, the big bucks there.
Now we can finish the show. I was able to run a.
I get it. That's what was missing. That's what was missing. We didn't have a dig at Jason. And we'll just end here.
Yep.
Jason's in Wisconsin right now. Can't wait to go back and watch the whole thing. My bandwidth only has room for one morning show, and this is it. I appreciate that, brother. Actually, I think you'll like this episode. It was kind of like a loosey-goosey. Theoretically, it was about Canada Day, but it really was just about a lot of some of the issues that kind of opened the floor. Wish you had been here. I think you would have really liked it, guys. I think
you would have been here, bro.
Oh,
you could have been my prom king.
Yes. No wonder you don't have any friends.
Oh, brother. I need to look for my prom king. I think that's what I'm going to say.
Oh yeah, you'll like that one too, Jason. It was a great quote too. I just fucked it up.
No, you didn't fuck it up. It was perfect. It was better than the movie, man.
Yes. Robbie and Jason sitting in a tree. Yes, I don't know. I like Jason. We don't sit in trees though. It's not our thing. We just have.
No, they have lattes at fucking Starbucks.
No, man, no. It's perfectly fine to say you like somebody. Like, hey, man, I appreciate your company. Yes. Guys.
No eye contact though, because that's
we just sit around. Yeah, what are you up to, man?
I really like you, bro.
I
like you too, bro.
All right, guys. Great show. Lots of engagement, lots of fun. I hope you guys had a good time. We did as well. Could have been anywhere in the world today, and you chose to be here with us, and we're always going to appreciate that. I was a little bit more relaxed today, a little bit loosey-goosey, you could say. It's my new word now. But tomorrow, of course, we're back at her. Just same as always, just grinding her through, doing slogging in the trenches, doing the hard work.
Grinding him through.
Grinding through the prom king. But after, if you like what you saw, if you're new to the show and you appreciate what we do here, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. If you really want to support us and independent media like us, you can become a member through your YouTube channel, and that will allow you to help grow the community and to support independent media like we try to do. Other than that, guys, have a great rest of your Canada Day. We will catch you tomorrow. Be safe. Don't drink too much. Do not drive if you drink. And don't forget to smash that like button, folks.